Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. It's Pamela at Life With Munchers. First up, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That way my weekly vlogs will pop up into your YouTube subscription feed. Now, today I am starting a two-part series about pregnancy conditions that I suffered with, purely because I get asked quite a lot in real life and on social media if we are going to be having another baby. But the answer to that is absolutely not, and it's not because I don't want to. I would quite happily have 3. In fact, I always wanted 3. However, after the pregnancies that I have had and how it's affected us as a family, there is just no way that we could go and have a third. It wouldn't really be fair on anybody in the family, so that is a decision that we have made. So I'm going to do 2 videos, like I said, one on each of the conditions that I have suffered, so that if you're suffering from it yourself, then perhaps you can show it to friends or family if you're struggling to get across to them just exactly how bad it is that you're suffering with this condition, and yeah, maybe it's something you can relate to. So first up, I am going to talk about HG, which is Hyperemesis Gravidarum, I believe it's pronounced. So this is sort of, and I hate to use the term morning sickness, but it is known more familiarly, is that a word? As being extreme morning sickness. It kind of more came out in the public eye when Kate had it, Princess Kate Wills. So she had it with both of her pregnancies, and that's kind of what brought it. I certainly hadn't heard of it before I had it or before she had it. I never really seen it, heard of it. Maybe it's just because I'm more tuned into it now. I see it more in the public eye. But yeah, it's really, really extreme morning sickness. It is not only just being sick, but the extreme nausea, and it is super, super difficult to describe the feeling to someone who hasn't had it. And really difficult to describe the feeling of the constant nausea. I was actually pregnant prior to having Liv, and we actually had a miscarriage, and that was with twins, and we found out at the 12-week scan, and I had morning sickness with that pregnancy, and I noticed a difference between that nausea and the HG nausea that I then went on to suffer with my other 2 pregnancies, and it is chalk and cheese, because one was completely bearable. I was still able to go to work, I was still able to eat, I was still able to function as a human being. It was just not very pleasant, whereas HG is just completely out of this world. It is just vile. It is, even the nausea itself is absolutely debilitating and crippling, and at such a, what's meant to be a happy time of your life in your pregnancy, it is really, really lonely. You can't describe it to anyone. Even medical professionals, I tend to find even midwives and GPs, even the consultants on the sort of like delivery ward and things like that at the hospital, they just had no idea. And I honestly believe that unless it's something you've suffered with before, that it's really difficult to relate, because you can only relate back to the feeling of sickness that you've ever experienced, and it is really, really not like that. But there is treatment available. So the first time I suffered with it with Liv, I was admitted to hospital very early on in the pregnancy through dehydration. There was ketones in the urine, and that's what the GP would be looking out for. There are various ranges of anti-sickness medication out there. I know if anybody, and if you've ever had HG, you will want to hit someone whoever suggests ginger biscuits in boiled lemonade and flat cola, because that is not even going to touch the sides, or those little wristbands, all the old wives' tales, all the traditional things that help with regular sickness will probably not even touch HG. So once I got admitted to hospital and I got rehydrated on a drip, they kind of try and break the cycle of HG. So they kind of, the way my consultant has described it to me about breaking the cycle, so if they can get you to stop feeling sick or being sick long enough that you can actually get some nutrition on board, whether that be liquids, or if you're able to eat something, great. but they're hoping to sort of like break the cycle long enough that you can get something on board and keep it down for a length of time so that you get the nutrition out of it, obviously for the health of you and for the health of your baby as well. So that's what they're trying to do. So it's not about eradicating the nausea or the sickness at all, it's about giving you a gap. So they can sort of tend to work through the different strengths of anti-sickness, and they all work differently on different people. So they'll tend to start you on something called like cyclazine or stematol, and then they kind of tend to work through to the more extreme one, which is ondansetron, which they actually use for chemotherapy patients. So with Liv, I was admitted, sent home with cyclazine, but I was back less than a week later, because again, it's like as you then stop getting nutrition into you, it spirals out of control, and I end up back in, and that was when I got on ondansetron. And I would say I probably started suffering about 6 to 8 weeks with Liv, and I was on ondansetron until about sort of 17 to 20 weeks, and then I was able to come off of it for the rest of my pregnancy, and I was fine. Obviously, when we got pregnant with Maisie again, and hence why we have a 4-year gap, is because expectation was there. I was told by my consultant that if you have suffered before, it is highly likely that you will suffer again, and that it will be more profound, so it'll be worse with each additional pregnancy. So of course I suffered with it. As soon as I found out I was pregnant, I could feel the nausea sort of building up and creeping in. So I went straight to my GP, and he immediately put me on ondansetron after he phoned the hospital consultant to get approval for that. I immediately went on that. However, it didn't work for me second time round. So I then got admitted to hospital to get rehydrated, the sort of usual sort of route that they take with you. And then, you know, it was all about finding some way to break that cycle. So it was definitely worse with when I was pregnant with Maisie, because we couldn't get this gap. And it was a combination of, there was metoclopramide and cyclazine and ondansetron that I finally got sent home with from hospital. And it didn't, I mean, it worked. I managed to get a gap, and by a gap, I mean I was able to swallow my own spit. I was able to drink. I was drinking like Lucozade sports drinks, which I know you're not meant to drink anything with caffeine in it, and you're certainly meant to stay away from energy drinks as well. But I was told that, you know, anything pretty much goes within reason, and it's whatever you think you can get on board. So that was the sort of things I was turning to. So that, and also smoothies, so innocent smoothies, and taking a straw and putting it right to the back of my mouth as far as I could stand, so that I couldn't really taste it as much, because with any sickness, textures, smells, anything like that kind of just immediately sets you off. So again, it's like finding what works for you. And so that got me through, and I was on I didn't manage to come down at all with my medication when I was pregnant with Maisie. I was on it right up until the day that I had her via C-section, and I was on the same strengths. I didn't manage to stop any of the tablets. However, I did notice that throughout the pregnancy, the sort of window of opportunity got that bit better, and you know, I wasn't feeling as sick as before, and so that was how it kind of progressed and improved. And that is exactly why we are not going back for another one, because it would just, you know, I don't even know. I mean, I lost out on so much with Olivia when I was pregnant with Maisie. I was essentially bedridden, and it was so much pressure on Scott, my husband. He had to pretty much do everything. He was a sole parent for the entire duration from like week 6 to 8 right through. So yeah, I was bedbound. I lost out on so much. I couldn't really go anywhere. I did get back on my feet again kind of around week 20. I was able to kind of take part in things, but again, it wasn't quite the same. I still had to kind of watch. I was very weak. I wasn't really able to walk very far, and yeah, it kind of pretty much was not a very pleasant time at all, to be honest. So if HG is something that you are suffering with, or have suffered with in the past, or perhaps you're a friend or a relative of someone who is suffering, I kind of just maybe want to give you some top tips that might or might not help, because everyone is different on how to get through this time. And one would definitely be accept any help that you can get, whether that is medically, whether it's going in and trying to find a sort of combination of anti-sickness drugs that work for you, whether it's herbal remedies because you don't want to take any anti-sickness, whatever it is, find something that works for you. It'll be very, very narrow, but there will be some drinks, some foods, but it's finding them, because it is so difficult, and sometimes it's completely random what you fancy. So find it and kind of stick to that and build up. Second thing is, you know, again, it kind of errs back to accepting help. If you have a friend or a neighbour or anybody who's close to you, because I know like none of our family was close to us. So what Scott did was, before he went to work in the morning, he would make me up a tray of things that he thought I might fancy throughout the day. So maybe like piece of fruit, smoothies, plain crisps, things like that he thought I might be able to nibble on throughout the day when he was at work. And yeah, that and a really good box set, anything to try and take your mind off of it. Certainly the only time I had any relief was when I was asleep, so I would try and sleep as much as possible. It is all just about getting through the day, getting through the portions of time, and accept help, because certainly when it's just the two of you and it's maybe your first pregnancy, it's not quite as demoralising as when you've then got children dependent upon you and you're perhaps having to make the dinner or do the school run. So when you've got those sorts of things, really do accept the help. If that is other school mums and dads that are happy to drop your children back with you or something like that, accept it. You know, feed the kids sandwiches instead of cooking something that's got a smell, whatever you can manage. And that is if you're on your feet in the first place. Do whatever you can manage, anything goes. But yeah, hopefully you get through. And it is such a lonely and depressing time. There is statistics out there about people who terminate pregnancies because they just cannot see the light and cannot get through. But hopefully you can see that it is possible to get through, and just continue to look forward to having your baby. Anything that kind of helps you bond and look forward, whether that is 4D scans if you can afford it, finding out the sex of the baby if you feel that that helps. We certainly did that second time round just so that I knew and I could start to think names and think a certain way. Anything like that helps you, do it to get through it, and take all the help you can get. But hopefully you will get through it and you will get a lovely little bundle of joy at the end. But I will be doing another video about other pregnancy condition that I suffered. So if you want to watch that, I will link to it below in the description box. But thanks very much for watching. And if you do like what you see, give us a thumbs up. And if you want to subscribe as well, that would be great. Thanks very much. Bye.